All right. Hey everyone. So I did a little riff on one of my groups because there was a request to talk about the emotional aspect behind your hip flexors. So the muscles at the front of your groin or your hip. So I wanted to share on here because I know that a lot of people identify with the psoas muscle, which is one of your hip flexors. And when we go into this, a lot of people say, well, the psoas is such a emotional muscle. And I think, well, every single one of your muscles in your body is an emotional muscle. Hi, Wadey. And we hold emotions in all parts of our body. It's not just the psoas. So if we talk about the hip flexor area and what this means emotionally and also physically, I want to share a little bit of insight with you. So the emotional aspect of the hip flexors is that this area around your hips and pelvis is your sacral chakra. So Christy, I'm just repeating what I shared on our release group. You can listen to it again. It's all off the cuff. Is that your sacral chakra is all about governing emotions around your relationships, and it is also about your ability to embrace change. So I'll talk a little bit about feminine and masculine energetics as well, which is where you can split the sides. So if you have right hip flexor pain or left hip flexor issues. Now, all of this emotional stuff usually resonates for people when they have tried all the physical stuff, or they're stretching the crap out of the hip flexor and it's not really responding, and that pain, that discomfort keeps on coming back. So they've done all the physical stuff, but it's still giving them a problem. So then I always ask people to look into the emotional aspect. So now if we dive into the energetics, the right side, the left side, the masculine, the feminine, if you had right flexor hip flexor issues, this is usually about your masculine energy and your career. So if we talk about it being around embracing change, if you feel tension there and it's restricted, then where is it that you're not embracing change and having that ability to step forwards and change direction? So this could be knowing that you want to go down a different pathway with your work, but you're not really embracing that change. It's hard for you to make a decision, maybe because you want to get out of the job and you want to start your own business, or you're in your own business, you're so burnt out and you just want to go back to the corporate world or be employed. It can also be that you are driving your masculine energy too hard. So you're like doing all the time and your body is starting to get worn out. So it's giving you pain to tell you, hey, just slow down and stop. And I'm going to get into the physical because it is important too. Like there is some structural stuff around here. But if we go onto the left side of your hip flexors, again, hip flexors, about moving forwards. It's what helps create movement in your legs, to step one foot in front of the other and move in the direction that you want to go. Feminine energetics is around your intuition, listening to your intuition, emotionally expressing yourself, and also to be creative and embrace your creativity. So where is it, if you've got hip flexor issues, that you are having difficulty stepping forwards in your feminine energy? And a lot of people in Western society are more in the masculine energy and not embracing much of their feminine aspect. It feels uncomfortable. And usually when we're doing something different from what we know, there's a level of discomfort as we step forwards. So if you've got that hip flexor discomfort, and you've tried all the physical stuff, but maybe I've got a little bit more insight for you with the physical, which I'll share with you, then look at the emotional and look at where you, when you have discomfort, when you've got pain in this area or restriction or tension, what is going on in your life at that time? What are your stress levels like? What is going on with your relationships, your job, how you express yourself? Now, if we go into the physical, your hip flexors, the front of the hip, has an antagonistic muscle, your glutes. So this is where I talk about feminine, masculine balance, is that, you know, we always have one thing and something does the opposite. So with your hip flexors, say it's on this side, your glutes counteract that and they should work together. So this is the physical part. If your glutes are not functioning very well and they are weak, then your hip flexors might react. And often tight muscles will be tight because they're weak. So you stretch them and then they get tight again. You stretch them, they get tight again. You stretch them, they get tight again. So you're not actually getting to the root of the problem. And this is where people often get stuck in the cycle of physical therapy because it feels good for a couple of days and then it comes back. That muscle doesn't need to be loosened off, it needs to be strengthened. And it may be also that your glute muscles are not firing and functioning properly to balance out through your pelvis. And I still come back to the emotional, because you might have been told to strengthen certain muscles, do your rehab, and you've done it for a little bit and things feel great, but then you fall off the bandwagon. And that is because emotion gets stored in our tissues. And stored emotions can hold us back from progressing with our healing journey. It can hold us back from moving forwards in life, and it can manifest in our physical, mental, and behavioral state. So, you might have been given all the greatest rehab, but if you haven't connected with the emotional aspect, sometimes it doesn't stick. And when we have emotions stored in our body that we would rather not deal with, or pain in our body that we'd rather not deal with, we choose to disconnect. And our brain doesn't connect to those muscles anymore. So it can be really hard to relearn, and you have to want to desire it. You have to want it to improve. And your emotional body manifests and reflects in your physical body, and likewise your physical body influences how your emotional state is expressed. So you can use both of these, but you need to connect both of them to start to get a real shift. So when you start to maybe strengthen your glute muscles and maybe your hip flexors, then on the emotional level, you'll start to feel different. And it's about having this awareness of, okay, when I work on my physical body, this is how I feel. And if it feels off, then you need to find another way or someone that can guide you. So that's my little riff about hip flexors and how, on an emotional level, what does hip flexor discomfort mean? And just please don't get carried away about the psoas being an emotional muscle, because every muscle in our body is emotional. It holds emotion. It has the capability to hold emotion. And it's all about learning how to release and process and metabolize our emotions in a healthy way. And then I talked a little bit about the physical and how can you bring the physical and the emotional together to resolve your hip flexor discomfort. So I hope that helps, and I will be on here live a little bit more regularly talking about those physical manifestations and what the emotions are behind it, so you can start to create awareness around what is it that you might want to process or look at in your life. See you later.